17. Split the expression into terms, the 4x and the negative 9x. And then those are like terms, so they can be combined. 4 minus 9. Think money. You had $4. You lose 9. Now you're 5 in the hole. Negative 5x. 7 minus 3x. There are two terms there, and they're not like terms, so they can't be added. So that's our answer. X minus 5x. We have two terms here. X and negative 5x. Anytime you have an x, the coefficient on that x is a 1. Now that doesn't mean that x is equal to 1, just that the coefficient is 1. There's one of the x's. 1x minus 5x. Think money. You had $1, you lost 5, now you're 4 in the hole. So there's negative 4x. Negative 5xy plus 5xy, think money. Now you have 0xy. And when we have 0 right next to xy, that means 0 times x times y. 0 times anything is 0. So the answer to this problem is just 0. Negative 5xy plus 5xy makes nothing. This one, we have 4 terms. Remember, when you split up the terms, you have to include the negative sign with the term. Or the positive sign. So this one is positive 3x. This term is negative 8y. This term is negative 10x. This term is positive 4y. So when you think of the terms, then you have to think of that sign with it. So when we add like terms, we're going to add our x's together. Remember, think money. I had $3, I lost 10, so I went into the hole. Negative 7x. Now our y's, a negative 8y and a positive 4y. Think money. You lose $8, you win 4 back, you're still in the hole, but only 4. So that's negative 4y. Right here, I have a lot of terms. Let's split them up by color. Let's see, I have a positive 8x squared and a negative 2x squared. So those are like terms. So they can be combined. Nothing else has just the x squared in it. So 8x squared minus 2x squared is 6x squared. Okay, let's do the x's next. Here's a positive 2x and a negative 5x. Notice how I keep the signs with them. The sign in front goes with the term. So 2 minus 5, think money, you had $2, you lost 5, now you're 3 in the hole. Negative 3x. And then last is our constant terms. That's the numbers that are all by themselves. So negative 9 and negative 10. Think money. You lose 9, then you lose 10, you're 19 in the hole. So that's my answer. Okay, I have 3 terms here. Positive 6y, positive 6z, and negative 6y. The 6y and the negative 6y can be combined. They're like terms. They add up to 0. 6 of them and negative 6 of them. You win 6, you lose 6, you're even. So those are gone. They add up to be 0. Kind of like this problem. So all that you have left is that 6z. I'm going to skip around a little bit. I want to look at these problems first. These problems all make use of the distributive property. The distributive property is used when you have a number outside of a parenthesis, and there has to be an addition or subtraction problem in the parenthesis. So notice all of these have an addition or a subtraction problem in the parenthesis. The reason why we have the distributive property is because normal order of operation would say, do the parenthesis first, x minus 9. But x minus 9, those aren't like terms. We can't add those, so we can't do the parenthesis first. That's why we have the distributive property. The distributive property tells us that you can distribute that negative 3 to both pieces. Remember, we're multiplying, so we're going to have multiplying here. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x. And then negative 3 times negative 9. Remember about the your negative rules. A negative times a negative makes a positive, so that will be plus 27. So I've distributed the negative 3 to both pieces. Now, I can't combine them any further because these aren't like terms. So that's my answer. Same thing here. I have a number outside times something in parentheses, and there's an addition problem in there. So I can use the distributive property. I'm going to distribute that to 2 times 4x makes 8x, and 2 times a positive 10 makes a positive 20. 8x plus 20. Okay. This one, I'm going to distribute this negative. Some people like to think of it as a negative 1 here being multiplied. Negative 1 times x is negative x, or negative 1x. Now here you have a negative times a negative. Remember, a negative times a negative is a positive, so this is a plus 4. Some people like to think of this negative sign outside. You're just changing the sign of each thing in the parenthesis. Negative x and then a positive 4. Again, distributive property because I have a number multiplied by something in parentheses, and that something in the parentheses is an addition or a subtraction problem. So 6 times 2x squared is 12x squared. And 6 times 5x is plus 30x. 12x squared plus 30x. Again, I can't add those. They're not like terms, so that's as simple as I get. Here I have an addition subtraction problem in the parentheses, and there are 3 terms in the parentheses. So I'm going to take this negative 3 and distribute it times all 3 things. Negative 3 times 2x squared is negative 6x squared. Negative 3 times negative 4x. Remember, a negative times a negative is a positive, so that'll be positive 12x. And then negative 3 times positive 1 is negative 3. Notice the parentheses gone. Once I do the distributive property, the parenthesis is gone. Again, I can't go any further. There are no like terms there, so that's my answer. Now I want to look at these problems. They look like you might be able to distribute, don't they? Because there's something outside of a parenthesis. But since there's no adding or subtracting in here, you can just multiply it through. You can multiply anything times anything. It doesn't have to be like terms. So I can just take 4 times 3a and combine the 4 and the 3 and just get 12a. Again, I have a negative 2 times a negative 8x. Everything is multiplied together here, so I can just take the negative 2 times the negative 8, just get 16x. Negative 3x times 1/3. Okay, so first off, let's talk sign. It's going to be a negative answer. A negative times a positive is negative, so there's going to be a negative there. I've got an x, so there's going to be an x there. So now what I need to do is know what happens when I multiply 3 times 1/3. Just like over here when I did 2 times 8 and I got 16. So if you take 3 times 1/3, multiplying fractions, it's no problem. First you do the top, then you do the bottom. You get 3 over 3. 3 over 3 is equal to 1. So that's negative 1x. And we usually write that just as a negative x. A coefficient of 1 is the same thing as negative 1x. It's the same thing as negative x. So there's our answer. And a lot of times people just memorize that. If you have a number times its reciprocal, that turns to 1, leaving you with just the negative x. So for example, if I had 5x times 1/5, the 5 times the 1/5 would just multiply to be 1, so I'd have 1x, or x. So if I had 1/8 times 8x, again, the 1/8 times the 8th would just multiply together to be 1, so I'd have just 1x, or x, left over.